Known until 1991 by its Russian name Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, now called Kyiv, has had a long and violent history, but it has always risen from the ashes of war and been rebuilt. An ancient city, it has belonged to many nations throughout that history. Badly damaged several times during attacks by various European princes in the 12th and 13th centuries, it was then confronted by the Mongols. In 1270, Kyiv was destroyed for the first time by the Mongols, led by Batu Khan. Rebuilt, in the 1320s it was conquered by Lithuania. In 1482, much of the city was burned by the Grand Duchy of Lithuania's enemies, the Crimean Tatars. Then, in 1667, Russia gained the city, becoming part of the Tsar's huge empire. Within Russia, Kyiv was a place of holy pilgrimage until in the 19th century it began to be heavily industrialized. Russians populated the center of the city and Ukrainians much of the suburbs surrounding it. In 1834 the Russians established a great university in the city, now called the Taras Shevchenko National University of Kyiv. Inevitably, the first stirrings of Ukrainian independence from Russia occurred in Kyiv, where in the 1840s, historian Mykola Kostomarov founded a secret society calling for a federation of free Slavic peoples, with the Ukrainians as distinct and a group separate from the Russian nation. This society was suppressed by the Tsar's secret police, the Okhrana. Kyiv developed into an important industrial center, and Russians moved in huge numbers to the region, ensuring that the center of Kyiv kept its distinctly Russian character. But many individuals and groups sought to preserve a distinct Ukrainian culture and identity. By 1900, Kyiv had a population of 250,000 people. It became famous for its modern railways, factories, universities, and public monuments. And it was the richest city in the Russian southwest and the third most important city in the Russian Empire. But then came the 1917 Russian Revolution. For the first time, Ukraine experienced a brief period of independence from Russia that lasted until 1920. The Ukrainian People's Republic, headquartered in Kyiv, was recognized by the new Russian Provisional Government. It underwent several internal revolutions in those turbulent years, and it was even occupied by German forces between March and November 1918. It also fell into the hands of the White Army, the anti-Bolshevik Russian forces fighting Lenin for control of Russia, occupied by them for 3 months in 1919. But in 1921 it fell to the Bolsheviks and lost its independence, becoming the capital city of the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic. Some changes then occurred. Ukrainianization did occur as Ukrainian peasants moved into Kyiv from the surrounding countryside, becoming workers in the vastly expanded industries, diluting the previous Russian identity to the city. Ukrainian culture flourished, ironically under Soviet control. The Soviets turned Kyiv into a huge industrial center throughout the 1920s, and its continued growth and prosperity seemed assured until Lenin's successor, Joseph Stalin, began his murderous purges and campaigns. Between 1932 and 1933, there occurred what's known today as the Holodomor, or the Great Famine in Ukraine. Stalin oversaw a famine in the region, perhaps on purpose, perhaps as a result of his industrialization policies, which were merciless. Either way, the twin effects were the unnecessary deaths of millions of Ukrainians and the weakening of a Ukrainian independence movement. No one is yet able to agree on the exact figures, the numbers who died, but perhaps between 4 and 7 million people starved to death. Stalin rejected all foreign aid and relief, fueling suspicions that the famine was engineered. This was followed by a purge in 1937-38 that resulted in the NKVD secret police eliminating almost all of Kyiv's intelligentsia, the educated elites that ran the city and provided much of the culture. The purge again designed to eliminate all suspected opponents to Stalin, and this purge occurred right across the Soviet Union, doing enormous damage to the population, the culture of the entire nation, and also to its armed forces. Then came World War II. The Germans were keen to conquer Ukraine. The Nazis wanted to turn the region into a German vassal state. What occurred in August to September 1941 badly damaged Kyiv and the surrounding region. The city was under a German siege for just over 1 month, with 450,000 Red Army troops defending the city against the better equipped and led German armies that numbered well over 500,000 men. Unfortunately, as well as fighting the Germans, the Soviets ordered a scorched earth policy concerning Kyiv, causing some damage to the city's infrastructure and its industries. The Soviet pocket around Kyiv was ground away by powerful German thrusts until what remained of the Red Army defending the city surrendered or managed to escape. The entire battle throughout the region ended up costing the Red Army over 700,000 casualties. Following the German occupation of Kyiv, there occurred a second tragedy, the large-scale massacre of the city's Jewish population in a ravine called Baba Yar. German security and order police of the Einsatzgruppen conducted several mass shootings that took the lives of thousands of Jews. In the initial massacre on the 29th to 30th of September 1941, the Germans shot 33,771 people, the largest two-day massacre in the history of the Holocaust. Please see my videos about this appalling subject, my other channel War Stories with Mark Felton, link in the end screen. Overall, during the German occupation of the city, they killed between 100 and 150,000 citizens. It should also be pointed out that hundreds of thousands of Red Army soldiers who were taken prisoner during the battles in and around Kyiv in 1941, most were never seen alive again. The Soviets were able to recover Kyiv in 1943 during a huge campaign in Ukraine, called the Battle of the Dnieper, named after the famous river that flows through the nation. 730,000 Red Army troops of the 1st Ukrainian Front fought the German 4th Panzer Army. By the end of the war, 80% of Kyiv lay in ruins. However, after the war, the city quickly recovered economically. The city centre was reconstructed. Huge Stalinist-style buildings going up, along with many tower blocks to house the workers for the newly reconstructed factories. Kyiv became once again the third most important city in the Soviet Union after Moscow and Leningrad. And this is the cityscape we see now, during the Russian invasion. It faced a new threat to its existence in 1986 during the Chernobyl nuclear accident, but this time it was saved from harm. Though only 62 miles from Chernobyl, the wind blew most of the radioactivity away from Kyiv. In 1991, Ukraine became independent for the second time in its history as the Soviet Union collapsed, and Kyiv became once again the capital of this new country, changing its name to the current spelling. So, for the 5th time in its history, Kyiv faces destruction at the hands of its enemies. Only time will tell just how bad that damage will be to both its population and its infrastructure. Thanks for watching, please subscribe and share, and also visit my audiobook channel, War Stories with Mark Felton.